Guys, welcome back to a new video. This is the third time I'm doing my tier list because I've had problems with the screen recorder, so it is quite annoying. But without further ado, I'm going to get straight to this video with no fuss. So, to honor the 12-year anniversary of Iron Man, we're going to start with Iron Man. So, I put Iron Man in the really good tier. I think it's such a good film. I like the jealousy of Tony Stark, because that's seen throughout his history and how he creates villains with what he's got. And there's always someone that's after what he does and someone that always wants to be better than him. Obadiah Stane, his own best friend, goes against him and betrays him. And he was the one behind the entire kidnapping of Tony Stark in the cave. And how Tony created literally an Iron Man suit with scraps, as Obadiah Stane's son said. It was just an amazing moment. I personally like this film more than the other Iron Man films, just because it really set the tone of his character. And not only that, Robert Downey Jr. did such a great job as Iron Man in his first outing, but I really liked Tony Stark, and I liked how he became so adaptable when he was in the cave. And the thing about Tony, because he's very smart, he can adapt to things. So the moment he goes through a certain scenario or a certain, let's say if you like, testing with his suit, he will always find a way to improve it, and there will always be room for improvement no matter what the suit is. And I just like the idea of Rhodey coming in. I really like Terrence Jones's version of Rhodey. Terrence Howard. It's just a shame that there was problems with him getting paid the amount he didn't want, and he thought he'd get paid more. I just think things like that just need to not be regarded as so important. It is a shame that happened, but it is what it is. So I was basically thinking, next, of course, we have Incredible Hulk. And Incredible Hulk, I'm going to put in an okay. I liked Edward Norton's style of Hulk. I really enjoyed the action and the sequences in this film. But I think it was a bit boring and subpar at times, so that's why it's going in okay. I just wish they really delivered more with this Hulk film. But in the past, his Hulk films have just not been that great. And it's a shame, really. Because I reckon Mark Ruffalo's version of Hulk would have been good enough in the solo film. And a lot of people like his version of Banner. So I think his one would work. And they could include people like Black Widow and instead of Betty Ross, and they can work on that relationship with them. Because we've seen throughout the history, Hulk's lover is always in danger. But what if Black Widow's already been in danger and she's stronger than Betty Ross? She's probably more realistic to be a lover as well, because she's actually understanding of Hulk and where he comes from. And in Age of Ultron, you see that a lot. I think this film was okay for that reason, just generally subpar and a bit boring. But I did like the fight scenes and the action, and that was the only good thing. Okay, and then of course, Iron Man 2. Now, out of all the Iron Man films, this is probably regarded as the worst one. I don't think it's the worst. I liked all the films, but I can see why. I like the inclusion of Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow. It was awesome to introduce her. I think the film had the cool concept with Whiplash, but I think at times it was a bit. I did like the idea of Justin Hammer, but I think that was pretty typical. Again, someone else has wanted to replicate what Tony does, create the Jericho missiles, all this. And we constantly see that within the films, and I think that was just a bit repetitive for me as a villain. Whiplash was interesting, but again, I think the villains in the film weren't very convincing for me, and that really ruined the film. But I did like the inclusion of Black Widow, and Don Cheadle's War Machine was officially in this, so it was interesting to see him. And yeah, I think the film was still good, but just not as good as everyone thinks. Or if I say so myself, I just don't think it was good as I thought. And then of course, Thor 1 was out in 2011 with the first Avenger. I'm actually gonna put this in. It's either really good or good, because I really enjoyed Thor 1. I think the criticism it gets is ridiculous. The scenes with Loki, I like the scenes with Odin, I like the scenes with Thor, how he goes to Earth, how he meets these Earthlings and things like that. I think it's really awesome, but yeah, it is a bit of a difficult one. That's the only problem. I don't know if I can put it really good and good. And I like the action, and throughout the film, like, he was unworthy, and you can see how he was literally the arrogance and how he starts a war with the frost giants and Odin casts him away, and all that was really interesting. Very different to the other four movies, even Ragnarok, when he doesn't have the hammer. But like, this is sort of, there's a hammer around. It's just not worthy this time. I'm actually gonna put that really good. Okay, I really liked it. I don't see the problem with it. It's not like Thor 2, so people gotta stop hating. First Avenger. Wow, I think all the solo films for these guys, Iron Man 4, Cap, I don't think any of them were bad. I really enjoyed First Avenger more than the usual. I'm obviously a Cap fan, so I don't want to be too biased here, but it was just such a great film. Like, Steve Rogers, his character, his moral compass, the way we were introduced to that was awesome. And I like the way we saw this version of Cap before he was Cap, and like Steve Rogers went through so much, obviously before Serum, and like, it's just amazing how he survived being in the ice for like 70 years and then became Captain America. And he wasn't taken seriously at first, but then once he'd saved the world and sacrificed himself, that's when things are like legit. And I think Steve's willpower throughout this is seen, and that's why we love him. And I like Red Skull. I think he's a great villain. I like World War II stuff, but I think this was better than even the real stuff, because like, they made it so fun. And if you really like that theme and that sense of 40s, it really captures it well. I think the film did well for that regard, and the jump with this in Winter Soldier is insane. But I thought the film was really good. I don't think it was bad. But yeah, after that, obviously, we had the Avengers. This is going straight up in best, and I'm going to rename that to Next Level, because I think that's more of a... Well, I spelled that wrong. I think this is way more... Why does it keep... It's sort of... Okay, that was weird. It was kept typing backwards. Right, Next Level was definitely more appealing for the top tier. This film was the first ensemble of a group of heroes that we hadn't seen together. So to be the first of many, the Avengers smashed it out. Popular in the comics. I mean, everyone was waiting for this. After Fury teased at the end of Iron Man 1, I'm here to talk to you about the Avengers Initiative. And that's when things really start getting more exciting. Come on, man. Easy Next Level. The scenes from the first film really captivated what it was about. Superheroism. How they came together. Hardly knew each other, and they still fought, the Chitauri. And Loki's arc in becoming that villain throughout the movie was pretty interesting to see. And then obviously teasing Thanos at the end was awesome, because we know he was going to be the big villain that we'd see in the future. But then the structure, and Joss Whedon did such a great job directing it. The film has to be Next Level. And of course, Phase 2. Iron Man 3. Now, a lot of people think this film wasn't as great as it was. I was annoyed at the hate, because I think, again, too many people hate on this. It's not the worst film. It's not the best film. But it's still a really good movie, so I might have to put it in the really good tier. It's fair to say, I like the idea of him not being in the suit and seeing him trying to cope with his PTSD, which is very relatable, and how things were creating a rift between him and Pepper, because like Pepper was having to deal with the problems that Tony was suffering, and he realized that he was taking up more of his time with his suits rather than Pepper. And I like the whole idea of that. And it was interesting to see. Aldrich Killian was, again, one of them villains. Again, really repetitive, but because he was supposed to be the Mandarin, it really made things different. But he wasn't actually the real Mandarin, and we are definitely going to see the real Mandarin in Shang-Chi, which will be awesome. I like the film, I like the action. I think Shane Black didn't do a bad job. And again, I think this film gets too much hate. It was really good, so people got to stop hating. For the Dark World, yep, that's going into not good. I think the whole Jane Foster thing cringed me, and like, just because of her, the Ether pretty much got his mother killed. Asgard was pretty much in a hell lot of trouble because of him. I mean, Loki got back on the throne. Um, it's all because of Jane Foster that happened. And I just don't like how annoying her character can be. And like, I did like Eric Selvig and stuff like that, and I did like Jane Foster, but I think she's cringe, and that kind of takes away Thor's character and what he's trying to do throughout the movie. I think it would have worked better with Lady Sif, because Lady Sif's actually like known for longer than Jane, and Lady Sif's just very similar to Thor, and they've gone through a lot together as friends. So I didn't like that whole interest with Jane Foster in the first place, but it was alright in the first film, but unfortunately it was bad. And then obviously the Dark Elves being the shit as villains, Malekith being such a puny person, it was bad. It was very bad. So yeah, I'm just gonna leave it there. And of course, you had Winter Soldier, next level, easiest. I love this political thriller. I love the twist in this film. I love how Hydra was still around, even though Cap had sacrificed himself, and he finds out he did it for nothing. Black Widow's inclusion was really good. She had more of a role in this than Iron Man 2. It's awesome to see her in the film. I like Nick Fury's presence, Maria Hill, and I really liked how it's pretty much such a big deal. Like, they took a lot of risks in this film. And it felt like, to me, a mini Avengers film. It was so great, structured well, action was amazing, the fight scenes were insane. I mean, Cap versus Bucky throughout the entire film was just a masterpiece. And, you know, Chris Evans and Sebastian Stan actually did some of the choreography and really worked for this film. And, of course, getting in the shape they needed to. But I really like the Hydra twist and how you realise S.H.I.E.L.D. was actually Hydra the entire time. Or compromised. It was literally such a different film to First Avenger, which is why I liked it, because they really changed it up and showed this is what Cap was like in the wartime, and this is what Cap's dealing with now in present time, and the difference is amazing, and the jump is astronomical. Amazing film. Obviously, Guardians of the Galaxy after that. Wow, I think people preferred this to the second Guardians. I think it was amazing. I liked the way they introduced the characters. They were like B-list characters in the comics, and they weren't that well known, and they just came household names once James Gunn put them in the limelight. And these guys, wow, they're going to have to go in the really good tier. Only reason I wouldn't put them in the next level is because it was so good for entertainment, the way they introduced the characters, the film. I really liked it, but I wasn't used to it at first, even though I've watched things like Star Wars and such. But I think Guardians, for me, is just under next level, but I wouldn't say it's not. You get what I mean? It's just preference, really, but I just don't know why I wouldn't put it in next level. May change my mind, but for now, I'm leaving it there. Then, of course, you had Age of Ultron. Now, I think this goes really good, man. I mean, really good. This film's so underrated. It has so many foreshadowing moments for Endgame. Really sets the tone from the start with how Ultron is created by Wanda's vision. Tony's vision, but created by Wanda. And it's crazy how the smallest event of Wanda creating a vision for Tony made him create this peacekeeping program. And I'm just annoyed that it's like Wanda's destructiveness pretty much caused that, and then that obviously leads to the events in Civil War, and sort of triggered by her after she tries to save Cap, and it hits that apartment above them. I think this is a very, very underrated Avengers film. I understand why people don't like it, but then I understand why people like it, and I really liked it. I think too much hate. I don't know if it beats the first Avengers, but I think the action is amazing, and I think some of the choreography in that was better than the first Avengers. And obviously the beautiful scene at the start, it was amazing. Some people feel that the trailer felt darker, and then the film wasn't as dark. I think at times they could have made it a little bit darker, but I think Ultron set the tone pretty well. I mean, he was such a cool villain, and first of many, and was kind of building up to, it was build up to Thanos to see how the Avengers would deal with the villain, that's going to try and destroy the world. I mean, apart from Loki, I mean, that was pretty pretty crazy for the first time. But I think at times this film showed you the biggest moments that were going to lead to Infinity War, like Thor's vision, seeing the Infinity Gauntlet and the stones, and then obviously the birth of Vision, and Wanda being an Avenger, and it was awesome. There was loads of introductions to new characters, and there was a lot of underrated scenes in this, so I think it deserves to be really good. Ant-Man, I want to put Ant-Man really good, but I personally enjoyed Ant-Man a lot. I think it is, again, really underrated. He's got tech that's so similar to Stark, but it's not fancy. It's like Hank Pym said, it can change the texture of reality, and like you can really see a cool perspective when he's wearing the suit, when he shrinks down to size, and you see the world in a really different way. And I think for me that has to go in the really good pile, because it's just so different to what it was. And Scott's character and the way he's desperate after prison, just trying to provide for his family and see his daughter, is like quite relatable to a lot of people. So it's only fair to say. So then after that Civil War, I'm not even gonna go crazy on this, because Civil War, oh my god, it had everything. The twists, it was basically, it jumped the stakes after Winter Soldier. The Russo's introduction from Winter Soldier was amazing, but Civil War was even better. Like the action, it was basically a mini Avengers film, just subtracting Thor and Hulk. The way the government were trying to get involved with the Avengers, and Tony believing that's right, because we have caused a lot of destruction despite us saving the world multiple times. But Cap's like, no, this isn't freedom. We're trying to fight for people's lives and save them, not trying to hurt them. And those people that get done through collateral damage, I mean, I understand why the government's getting involved, because they don't want innocent people dying. And Cap says before a war starts, innocent people die every day, or every time. And he says that in Age of Ultron, which is sort of contradicting himself in this, because innocent people are dying when they're doing it. And I mean, they're literally trying to stop those people from dying, but then they're accidentally killing them. It's a shame, but like, it's not like these guys end up doing it on purpose. Of course, they're not villains. They're trying to do what's good. But again, Cap learned a lot from what happened in Winter Soldier with trusting the government and letting them be an eye in things, and that's why he's very distant from that idea. You understand both perspectives, and then the twist at the end with Cap not telling Tony about his parents. Wow, that was crazy. A lot of people blame Cap for that, but I think there's a point that only Cap knew that. And Bucky wasn't doing it out of his own sake. He was doing it because Hydra had made him into that weapon, and he didn't have control of himself. But of course, Tony snaps, tries to kill Bucky, and that's what... Bucky was the only thing Steve had, and we saw that at the end of Winter Soldier, like, other than Peggy and stuff, like, he was the only one around that was really... that had been there since day one. But yeah, Civil War was definitely next level. And then, of course, after Civil War, we had Doctor Strange. I think Doctor Strange is a good film, but quite at times, I like the action, I like the way he introduced his character. Very Tony Stark-esque. He had like ego, like he was the best surgeon. He knew what he was doing. And then at one point, when he couldn't surgeon himself, or perform surgery on himself, he gets annoyed and finds a method which ends up leading him to Comatage, and how he becomes Doctor Strange. It's an amazing story. I think it was a bit quiet at times, but I did like the underlining aspects of the movie, especially when they introduced a multiverse and Dormammu, which is really cool. And I'm sure we will see him in the future, or we'll see more celestial beings, and I think that was teasing it. And I really want to see Living Tribunal and stuff. It's just, can't wait for that. I think the second Doctor Strange will be really good, and I can't wait for that. I'm so hyped for his film. Okay, so after Doctor Strange, of course, then we had Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Now, Guardians of the Galaxy 2 didn't seem as good as Guardians of the Galaxy 1. I think I can understand why. I think it was still funny, it was still good. But you can understand why people didn't like it as much as Guardians 1. And I think Guardians 1 is just OG, so it's hard to say it's better than that. But I saw this opening night, and I think it was just amazing to see all the humor and the comedy throughout this. I think that's what appeals to a lot of people. And these guys are a household name, and I think there was a lot of expectation from that. But I think the film was still good, but again, you can understand why the film wasn't any better. Um, so on to the next one, Spider-Man: Homecoming. I think Spider-Man: Homecoming was good, but I think personally, I quite like the whole Tony Stark influence and how he introduced him in Civil War, because we're not going with the whole Uncle Ben arc, because that always happens, and we want something a little bit different. I think it's awesome that we got that inclusion. I think the action and stuff was good, but this is a very young Peter Parker, and you have to really get used to that. I had to watch it a few times and then really get gripped on it. But I did like the film. After watching it a few times, though, I think you can understand why the audience are more captivated by him being younger, because obviously it appeals to a younger audience, and they can relate to him more as he's in school. And comparing it to the Sony Spider-Mans, it's a bit difficult because obviously they're more mature, older, and they're dealing with things more independently rather than being under the wing. And that's what a lot of people didn't like. And at some points, not that Tony's getting in the way, but I wanted Peter to be more of a independent hero. And he is in the end because he fights Vulture. But I'd like to see a more developed version of Spider-Man. And obviously, I think because Tom Holland's young, he can commit to a longer deal. He could be Spider-Man for as long as he wants. Like, even when he's 30, he could still play Spider-Man, like a more mature version. I really hope he's around for many, many, many years, and it'd be awesome to see how well he does as Spider-Man. I think Tom Holland's version's a perfect balance of Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker, so I'm just really glad we've seen this balanced version of Spider-Man, and it is really interesting. But yeah, it's something different to your typical web-slinging, city-going Spider-Man. He's doing the smaller things, as Tony said, build yourself up, be the little guy that performs in the grey matter. So, it's very important. I like the scenes with him and Tony, him being like a father figure. Obviously, there's no Uncle Ben mentioned, and Aunt May's hardly in this, but it's cool to see like she's still around, and we get some scenes with her. Of course, after that, Ragnarok. Oh my god, for Ragnarok, next level, easily. This film, again, raised the stakes for the Dark World. That was just so... you can see the difference. Not good to next level in one movie. Amazing. Taika Waititi delivered such a good film. He really changed it up. He made Thor way more charismatic and lighthearted. And that matched more with Chris Hemsworth, because he was becoming... Chris Hemsworth was always a charismatic guy, but I think he really wanted that type of Thor to be around in the MCU, because then he felt like he could play it more naturally. But I think he's still badass, but I think they've made him more funny. I like the inclusion of Hulk and how we find out where he was after Age of Ultron. It makes total sense. And I like the main villain of this as well, Hela. She was pretty shocking as well, because she destroys Mjolnir. Things go to crap, she's taking over Asgard. She even kills the Warriors 3, loads of Asgardians. She's drawing more power from Asgard, and then once they get back from Sakaar and all the little adventures, it's just amazing what happens. I think it's awesome to see Thor finally get the Odin Force. Obviously, when Odin disappears, when they go to see him in Norway, he transfers the Odin Force into him and Hela, because obviously them being his his sons and daughter. But I think him finally getting the Odin Force, and the fight with Hulk was amazing. Like the way we saw him get thunder and punch Hulk. Wow, like that scene with Hulk was crazy, and I love to see that. Because you really got a joy out of that fight, because you always thought, who's actually stronger, Thor or Hulk? And the way they introduced that, and Thor goes, yes! Like, he gets excited. I loved it. I love the humour, I love the action, I love how sci-fi it was, and all the cast were great. And then, of course, Black Panther. Now, I'm putting this in good. I think the story was great. I'm really happy that it had a really great cultural impact on the black community. And, it really set the tone with Ryan Coogler's directing and how he wanted to create this picture for the sake of the black community. Of course, he doesn't want to just make it for that. I think it was a great film for that sense, the sense of culture. I love the whole Wakandan aspect on life. It was really nice and interesting. I love the technology as well, because of course vibranium is their specialty, and I liked how his T'Challa's father screwed up, and that caused the villain down the line. It's like he had to deal with the mistakes of his father, and then Killmonger was an interesting villain. Like, he was only bad because he was left for bad, because his dad was left dead when he goes back to his room, and T'Chaka just made that huge mistake and didn't take the boy back home. It was awful that they did that, and I just wish that they, if they took Killmonger when he killed his own brother, it would have been interesting to see like how Killmonger grows up. Like, would he try and overthrow Wakanda while he's there? But it was interesting how Ulysses Claw as well, how he was around. Sorry, I thought it had to be or Wasp, because I guess I only in my room. But anyway, I did, like I said, like the inclusion. I think the film did really good for that reason. But other than that, I feel, again, the action was really, at times it was a bit boring because it was really CGI'd, and I think for the sake of story this worked better, but I think it was a bit typical at times. I just think it was overrated personally. I really wish it was a better movie, but yeah, I'm going to be honest, I think it could have been way better. A lot of people may disagree, but I do think it's overrated. And of course, Infinity War, best MCU film of all time before Endgame. Wow, the structure, the Russos really went to shop with this. The shocking factors from the start with Heimdall and Loki's death, all the sacrifices they had to make, and how the Avengers were basically broken after Civil War, led to their demise for many of them, and for the snap, because they weren't together at their strongest. They were separated. Cap and Iron Man weren't together, and it's a shame that Iron Man or Tony let his ego get in the way and goes like, this is something bigger than we've ever dealt with, Thanos. And then when Bruce tells him Thanos was the one that sent Loki to New York, and that's when you realize things are massive. So when the team gets together, the way they introduced the Guardians was really cool. I liked how the Guardians had a lot of influence in this and how they were with Tony. And then obviously you had the other Avengers in Wakanda getting ready to fight. The battles in this were great. The ending is so intense and it's so shocking. It definitely had that Empire Strikes vibe. And leaving the cinema knowing you had to wait a year for this film was insane. Again, I'm never going to forget this film. Opening night, amazing. But then, of course, things got crazy after. Yeah, so obviously after that, you had Ant-Man and Wasp. I think Ant-Man and Wasp was good. The thing is, I don't know if it would be better than Ant-Man 1, but I like the inclusion of the Wasps. I like the more action in it. I like the characters in the film. I like his crew, because they just made me laugh so much. And they did make the film more interesting, and obviously bringing back Janet Van Dyne was really cool, because they realised she was actually alive this whole time. It's possible, because she just went subatomic, but it doesn't mean she would be dead. Just means she'd be irrelevant to the concept of time and reality, because she'd be so small. But I liked how they brought her back, and I want to put it in great. But there's something that's holding me back about the film. I'm not too sure, but this was so important for people to understand the quantum realm and all that, and I really like that. I think at times Scott was pretty hopeless, because his suit was a bit all over the place, because he kept shrinking and stuff. I really did like the way he was on house arrest and he was trying to entertain his daughter and still be a good father. And then being Ant-Man, after what happened after Civil War, it was not going to happen, because he pretty much lost the trust of Hank and Hope, and then building that trust again. Um, yeah, it was quite a journey for him. Again, I like the film. I don't know what's holding me back though. Do you know what? I'm gonna leave it at good for now. Okay. Needless to have to say, but Captain Marvel was trash. Not good. I really didn't like Captain Marvel. I think it was so overrated. Don't know why it got a billion. I think the feminism agenda throughout this movie really cringed me. I like the scenes with Nick Fury and seeing how he was when he was younger, more chipper and more witty. But I think Captain Marvel just cringed me throughout this. Brie Larson cringed me. And I think that ruined the film for me. Because when you see her in Endgame, she's completely different and doesn't annoy you as much as she did in her own film. And makes total sense that she was better in Endgame because the Russos dealt with her. And the directors in Captain Marvel, awful job, you guys. You guys actually deserve a slap because you ruined literally a Marvel film. Yeah. And of course, obviously, Endgame, best MCU film of all time right now. Wow, the scenes, I love the time travel aspects, the flashbacks, the payoffs, the throwbacks, the references, the fan service. Wow, the Cap wielding Mjolnir, saving Thor from Thanos. The start of this film is very tense when Thor kills Thanos. How the Avengers go about the time travel mission, and then obviously Black Widow's sacrifice is super sad. I don't know why they didn't keep her alive. I think it's a good way of ending her up, but she had way more that she could have done, like become head of S.H.I.E.L.D. or work in that sort of new era of S.H.I.E.L.D. because there was no more Hydra and they'd pretty much been getting vanquished. I don't really watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., so I don't know what's going on with that. I really think that the ending of Endgame as well, with Tony doing the snap, was the saddest thing. I literally couldn't believe it first time watching it opening night. No one could. I had a better experience of this film because I watched it in 4DX, so I could feel the movement in the film. My seats would shake, I'd smell it. Someone got hit, you would feel the impact, and the seats would move if they're like flying, and you would feel the force with things and the weather. It was awesome. So it really made the experience even better. Plus, you got to see it in like IMAX 3D, which is insane. Amazing cast. Not amazing cast. Amazing experience in that environment. This was a great film, and yeah, I don't think anyone else needs to say why it's next level. I think it just speaks for itself, right? Okay, so after that, of course, the final film in Phase 3 and the end of the Infinity Saga was Spider-Man Far From Home. I like this film. I like the scenes with Mysterio. I like the way we had to see Peter deal with Tony Stark's death and how he had to fulfill that role. He's not Tony, but he's Spider-Man, and of course, still being young, he's dealing with a lot. The twist at the end is insane. I love the post-credit scene with J.K. Simmons, obviously canonizing that J. Jonah Jameson's in the MCU. I quite like Nick Fury being involved, taking Spider-Man more seriously because he's a legit Avenger now. The whole thing with Tony's glasses, like, it was left for Peter. It was awesome. It's just, I don't know what, I think this film lacked a bit of action at times. There were action elements, but main action was near the end. I think it focused a lot, of course, on him being into MJ and stuff, but I didn't want that to go away from the entire concept of the movie and who Spider-Man is. Again, it's really influences the younger generation, and I totally get why, but I just can't wait to see Spider-Man more and more mature. I think the film is good, but nothing more. And that is my list. Now, I did go in a bit more detail with certain films, but I know I had to do this the third time. But yeah, that's my list, guys. I hope you like it. Let me know what you think. Obviously, I'm really interested to see what you guys think. I think it's a fair list, and majority of the MCU I like. There's only 4 films I don't really fancy, but I'm happy with watching all these films again. But yeah, those are the ones that really stick out for me. Of course, that top tier is the one that really makes you think how great the films are. And those are the 6 films that reset the MCU for me. So, like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you thought, and I'll see you in the next one.